Good morning everyone, I'm Cora. As you might have guessed, I like drawing, but that doesn't mean I'm satisfied with what I can currently draw. Not that long ago, I decided to start learning everything again from the beginning, even the most basic stuff. And everything that I study in my videos I will note down in the Google Sites. Okay, so clothing folds is going to be a special one because throughout my entire art journey, ever since I was small, I'm still not that tall, but I've been learning through multiple guides for drawing hair, tips for drawing poses, color theory, hands, feet, water, all sorts of things. But one thing in particular throughout all of my years that I've never looked up a guide on is clothing folds. Oh, but you already knew how to draw clothing. Yeah, but it's not that good. Looking back before this video, I barely had a decent understanding of drapery and folds. And before 2025, I want to make an artwork that includes folds. Usually when I study stuff, you guys might notice that I often bring up the same artists in my videos. Yoniyamai, Rolua, Magoon, some popular anime artists. Can you guess which artist I'm learning from today? Leonardo da Vinci. These are some of the most incredible looking drapery studies that I've seen. Will I be able to get on Da Vinci's level? Likely not. Let's ask good old ChatGPT.
Leonardo da Vinci studied drapery and folds with meticulous observation and innovative techniques.
Oh, so he just observed it? Then how much time did he spend studying drapery? I started by looking up tutorials and free PDF books online. How hard can it be? It's just folds. And it wasn't just folds. As I learned more and more about folds, I got more and more confused. Diaper fold? Why call it a diaper fold? You literally just described it as a bowl. Why not just call it a bowl fold? Spiral fold? Isn't it just the same pipe fold from earlier, but instead there's two forces twisting it? I learned, I practiced, I found my mistakes, and repeat. By the way, this is just my notes. Don't use my video as a full guide, maybe just as tips. Here are 4 key things that I like to keep in mind when drawing drapery. Let's start with the first one. The different forces affecting the fabric. The way that fabric is folded and is shaped like will be affected by whatever force is interacting with the fabric. A force that will always affect the fabric is of course gravity, causing it to go downwards, unless you're in space. You've likely heard of tension points. Tension points are the forces that directly pulls the fabric. You can see that the folds will converge from the tension point, and a piece of fabric can have multiple tension points. Like this shirt on an arm, we can see that the shoulder is pulling the fabric, the elbow is pulling the fabric, and the wrist is also pulling the fabric. Second, the underlying shape beneath the fabric. Let's take something like curtains. We know that whatever is pulling the fabric is likely a tension point. The same goes for a bar holding the curtains. We can see the curtains fold and converge from the bar, because the bar is basically a tension point, just bar-shaped. The form of the object that the fabric is on top of will affect how it folds, like this round table or a square table. As for the third one, the material that the fabric is made of. The fabric's thickness and stiffness will affect the folds. If you compare silk and a type of leather, silk will fold a lot softer, while leather might fold pretty sharply because it's more stiff. The thickness of a fabric will affect how easy it folds. A normal white shirt compared to a thick jacket made of wool will have a highly noticeable amount of folds compared to a wool jacket. I mean, it makes sense. It's easier to bend something that's thin than something that's thick. Now it's time for folds. Folds can be tricky. Well, at least for me, I feel like some guides just confuse me more. Okay, maybe they were just tricky for me. I'll get into that later. A lot of people would recommend that you find reference for drawing folds, and I would as well. Cause there's theoretically an almost infinite amount of possible folds that a fabric can do, but there are 5 or 7 particular types of folds that you will often see. These are not all of them, these are just the most common ones. Number 1. Pipe folds. Pipe folds often appear when it's like curtains or dresses. These folds are often long and yeah, it's basically cylinders and pipes. Number 2. Zigzag folds. When fabric that is shaped like cylinders is being compressed, they often fold in zigzag patterns, like sleeves on an arm because the arm is kinda cylinder-shaped-ish. Number 3. Spiral/radial folds. I could be pretty wrong about this one. These will mostly occur on cylindrical forms like a shirt when the arm is causing tension, or maybe a tight shirt. and pretty often it's like small pipe folds that you see getting twisted, I guess. Number 4. Half-lock folds. If we bend the leg or the arm, it will create a noticeable fold at the area where it's mostly compressed. It's basically a zigzag fold, but only on one half of the arm, cause one side has tension while the other side is compressed. You know, half. Number 5. Diaper fold. I still don't get why it's called a diaper fold. It's created when 2 points of tensions are hanging the fabric like this. These are often created by scarves, capes, or dresses. It makes this like bow-like shape. Number 6. Drop folds. It's basically pipe folds, except that specifically drop folds is when a lot of fabric is hanging by an edge of something, while gravity is pulling them down. Number 7. Compression folds. I'm sorry, but these two last folds, again, these are just the same fucking pipe folds from earlier. Oh, but you see, Cora, this time, it's because the two forces are pushing the fabric together, causing it to compress. I get it, but what I don't get is, why the fuck does pipe folds have their own category? Okay, so here was my problem when I studied folds. The categories called pipe folds and zigzag folds. Someone please explain, why are they on the same list that includes scenario-specific folds? If we take this curtain, this piece of cloth, and this dress, we can easily categorize these as pipe folds. But each one of these can also be categorized into drop folds and spiral folds. You can make the excuse and say, oh, it's because fold categories might cross each other sometimes. Well, that's just a lazy answer in my opinion. We have these sleeves, we can easily categorize them both as zigzag folds. But guess what? We can also categorize them as a half-lock fold and a compression fold instead. Hot take. I don't think the list of common folds should even include the pipe or zigzag folds. We should have a list of common folds and then another list including what shapes/patterns these folds will create, being the pipes and the zigzags. Sorry about the rant. I was just sitting there one day wondering, what's the difference between pipe folds and drop folds? Since these two are their own categories, they're gotta be different in some way, right? Let's just move on. One day, I was just sitting there, making rough sketches. I also watched more videos about folds, because why not?
So I'm just going to put a couple zigzags in here, like that. A couple zigzags, zigzag, zigzag.
And then it clicked for me. Okay, so do you see this origami thingy? This is the final piece that helped me understand everything. It's all zigzags. Back to the zigzag pattern. I realized it's basically the same as this origami pattern. Tell me, how many zigzags can you point out in this picture? There's some here and here, right? Wrong. There's more. The small dents, they zigzag back and forth, in and out of the fabric. Yeah, it zigzags one way, but it also zigzags the other way, which is what allows the cylinder to fold and compress the way that it does. Just like the origami structure. It's just all zigzags. When everything is compressed in some way, it will start to spread out and seek space. And fabric is no different. Fabric when compressed will fold and zigzag to spread out. You see these curtains, right? It's not just pipe folds. It's semi-zigzagging at the bottom, going back and forth. I was so caught up with memorizing common folds that I didn't even consider understanding the basic mechanics of how folds are created. It felt like my art observation skills just unlocked a new part of the skill tree that I never even knew existed. You see this shit, Da Vinci? I didn't even need to spend 5 years. I finished my work before 2025, and I learned something new. Is it perfect? It's not. It can always be better. If you want a tip for drawing clothing or just anything in general, please just use the reference. Trust me, relying on memory and imagination alone is possible, but things get a lot easier when you add reference into the mix. Like, even Da Vinci used reference. I didn't actually use any reference for this work at all. The reason why I didn't do it was because I was just too lazy to do so. I'm not proud of the overall artwork, but this specific area with the folds I'm actually somewhat proud of. Alright, bye bye.